Hey, welcome to Mama Mandala. I'm Hagar. It's a new moon in Gemini, and the Gemini archetype is an invitation into our creativity and into our inspiration and into the way that the world speaks to us in all these different ways. And the question is, are we listening? Are we allowing the way that the world moves to speak to us in all the different languages that it does? Are we allowing ourselves to receive information and knowledge and art and music? Are we taking the world in as a piece of art, as something to be nourished by, as something to listen to and observe and be in relationship with? So the archetype of Gemini is the archetype of great communication, which we often think about as somebody who knows how to express their needs and their wants, their desires, somebody who knows how to express what they have in mind. And the mind of Gemini is very busy. There's a lot on their mind. But communication has its great power in listening, in allowing the world in. And one of the things that are associated with this archetype is the muse. And muse is here for us to listen to allow in, right? Inspiration only comes to us when we are open to it. It shows up when we are ready to receive it. And sometimes when we're ready to receive it, it's not going to show up. And sometimes it's going to show up when it's uncomfortable, but when you're driving and you don't have a pen and paper with you, or when you're in the middle of the night, you're waking up from a dream, totally inspired, and tell yourself that you will write it down in the morning, and then by the morning you forget, right? So the invitation here is into a relationship of listening, of allowing, and that takes us then into a process of expression. So Gemini is a great artist in its archetypal presence, a great teacher, somebody who really knows how to share what they already have learned, and through the process of teaching, they are learning. So there's an expression and a listening that are intertwined, kind of always, right? Now, the archetypes of astrology all live in us. I'm not an astrologer. I'm more of a mythologist, and I love playing with archetypes because there are ways for us to understand ourselves and to understand each other more deeply, more fully, more creatively. And this particular archetype of Gemini is that invitation to receive the world in all the different ways that we can, and to allow the world to speak to us in all these different ways. And archetypes are a great way to see the world through, to look at ourselves as, so that we can continue to expand ourselves and grow ourselves and cultivate greater adaptability, which is actually one of the qualities of the archetype of Gemini. It's the capacity to adapt and to move and to change. So Geminis are known to change their minds a lot, and you don't have to believe in astrology in order to play around with this archetype. I have a very fun relationship with all of this. I'm not a believer, but I'm an explorer, right? I love to let these qualities of each of the zodiac archetypes to speak to me in the ways that they do, because they live in all of us in all these different ways. And today's a new moon in Gemini, so it's an invitation to begin as a lunar cycle, to begin a cycle in the presence and in the vibration of inspiration and of creativity. And we can ask ourselves, what am I allowing myself to listen to, so that I can bring an inventive quality to how I'm living my life. What is it that I'm willing to listen to? What inspires me? What causes me to kind of feel a rush of being enlivened, so that I can also, through this enlivening process, bring a different way of interacting with the issues in my life, with maybe my own issues with myself, right? How can we let the creative power of the energy of muse, how can we let it bring us into a problem solving interaction with ourselves and with the world? Because issues are going to come up. There's going to be stuff that come up in this cycle, right? There's always stuff that comes up. There's maybe problems in the world. There's maybe the issues of modern day-to-day living. There's going to be stuff that happens with our children and with our partners and with our friends and within ourselves. We're going to have different experiences that move through us. So how do we bring the lens of inspiration? How do we view the world in a way that allows every experience that we have and everything that moves around us and through us to be a collaborative power with muse, so that all the stuff that happens to us in our lives, in our day-to-day, can become opportunities, right? And it has a lot to do with how we speak to ourselves, right? And this is the invitation of Gemini. It's the invitation to ask ourselves, how do I speak to myself? Am I speaking to myself in ways that support the way that I want to live? Am I speaking to myself and about my life in a way that expresses the kind of person that I want to be? These are good questions to ask, and we can let them, in a very Gemini spirit, become inquiries. So Gemini is an archetype that inquires, that investigates, that questions things. That's one of the reasons why they love to move around a lot. They love to explore, and they love to jump around from one thing to the next. One of their shadows is that they don't really like to commit. They're very hard to pin down. They're very hard to make plans with. It's very hard to kind of make a decision and go in that direction with this archetype, because they love to fly around like little creatures, like little magical creatures that just love to sip in inspiration from different flowers in life. They don't really love to, they're not into coming back to the same place in repetition, right? Repetition brings them down. I can very much, I'm not at all a Gemini, and I can very much relate to this. Repetition really brings me down sometimes. The way that life as an adult is so much about routines can really bring me down. I'm not a big fan of that. I love to have adventures, and I love to have the kind of life that isn't pinned down by routines. So how do we bring creativity and luster and a lust for life, even when we have the kind of life, which most adults do, that requires a commitment, that requires a routine, that requires a repetition? How do we bring a creative, innovative kind of quality to the way that we live a life that may require a repeating, that requires repetition, right? And so this is one of the things about this archetype, is that they really love they don't, it's not that they love, it's that they are always seeking. They are always seeking. And maybe some think that it's because of the archetype of the twins, right? So it's one person that feels like they're two, that maybe there's a feeling there like something is missing. And isn't that in some way so many of us, even if we have nothing to do with Gemini, right? But it's that feeling that, oh, where you are is not enough, or where you are isn't where you thought you were going to be, or where you are, or who you are, or what you're experiencing and moving through in your life isn't the fulfillment that you were envisioning. And so there's like this seeking for something else, for something more, for something to fill us and fulfill us. And it can be really frustrating, and there can be an energy to it of dissatisfaction, but that friction of a little bit of discontentment is also not just a bad thing, right? It can be really healthy because it keeps us moving, it keeps us exploring, it keeps us adapting, it keeps us changing and looking for other ways. And that's a really great, valuable ways to move with our lives, because life is dynamic. So Gemini is a very dynamic kind of energy in us. So we can use it when it's very strong for us. So if it's easy for us to tap into it, we can ask ourselves, well, this dynamism that is so alive in me, how do I want to channel it? Where do I want to take it? What do I want to create with it? And if it isn't, then we get to ask ourselves, what brings me a feeling of aliveness? What inspires me? How do I tap into this dynamic energy so that I can bring myself into a place in my life that feels more fulfilling or that feels more inspiring? What inspires you to move into an energetic process that brings more inspiration in, right? Because let's face it, nobody loves to feel dull, right? We all love to feel inspired. It's just that it's going to take on different forms for different people. It's not all going to look the same. Inspiration moves through some of us as words that want to flow through us. That's a very Gemini thing. The Gemini energy is a language energy. It's a wordsmith power. It's the word witch. It's the ability to make magic with the way that we speak. It's the poetic energy that wants to move through us as words. And for others, it's through sounds like music. And for others, it's a vision, and it's a visual art kind of a way. And for some of us, it's just how we love, and how we love to receive love. So, and there's so many other ways, right? For some of us, it's kitchen stuff. I know that for me, even though I hate routine, and even though sometimes I get a little complainy about being a mom and always have to be in the kitchen and always have to cook, I get a lot of inspiration in the kitchen. I'm a kitchen witch. I love it. I go to the farmer's market and I look at what's in season, and all the colors of all the different fruits and vegetables can really start to move my mind and heart and creative energy toward making stuff, right? And that's a way that then I express my love, because I love to cook for the people that I love, right? And there's a duality there, and this is one of Gemini's qualities. It's a quality of duality because it's the twins, right? So it's always, oh, I love to cook, but I hate it. I want to make food for the people that I love, but man, don't force me to do that all the time, every day for every meal, right? It's that Gemini is that energy of duality, of two things are true at the same time, and there's always another side. There's always another side to it. It's not the Libra energy of equalizing. It's not that energy. It's more, well, if this is true, then What about this? What about that? It's, see how that's like that inquiring energy? So it's the invitation to remember that there's more sides to the story. And through that, it's again taking us into a process of not just taking something, not just taking the answer, but continuing to develop and deepen our questions. Gemini isn't known for depth because they keep jumping around and moving around and quickly changing and being really witty, but not necessarily deep. And it's not a comment on the personality of a Gemini. It's just, again, an archetypal exploration. But depth can show up not by staying necessarily always in the same place and moving further and literally deeper into something, into its roots, but depth can be also the ability to keep. Sometimes that also happens, right? Like there's going to be different things that happen in our life. Gracie, shh, come here. It's okay. I'm sorry. Depth can come through us as our ability to keep moving the lenses, to keep moving our eyes through many lenses, to keep putting ourselves in as many shoes as possible, so that we're not only seeing things from only one angle, but rather continuing to expand our capacity to understand something. So that's a way to look at depth in from a different angle, right? Not just in one direction, but in many directions. Again, it's that innovative capacity to look at things differently, and through that, cultivate and form and bring into shape things in different ways. So I hope this was somewhat interesting for you. I'm sorry about my dog Gracie barking, but hey, I'm not going to edit this. I'm just going to invite us to enjoy the way that life is always moving through us in different ways, and to even let that become a learning process for us, right? Because if I just edit this, then it's the looking for something to be perfect. It's looking for to offer myself, to offer ourselves, to share ourselves in a way that is going to really be like a performance. But if we let things be alive, and this is very much the invitation of Gemini, it's like, how do we keep things alive? We might want to, this is for me like a living lesson in this moment, we might want to allow the mistakes, the imperfections, the barks of the dog, the ringing of the doorbell to be opportunities for us to continue to mutate. Okay, so mutate in the way of mutable signs. So Gemini is an air sign. It's the mutable sign. And it's this invitation to breathe, to let things be alive, and to let that life move us in that dual way, in that there's an inner and an outer. There's an inhale and there's an exhale. But the inner and the outer commingle and collaborate, because as we breathe in, what was outside has now come into ourselves. And as we exhale, the inner workings of our being touch the world around us. And then the inner and the outer commingle and intertwine and interweave. And we're always in that process. We're always in the process of weaving, interweaving, and intertwining the inside and the outside, self and another, the world and ourselves. And it gives us the duality that then offers us a triangulation of experience, because it's always you and me and our relationship. It's you, the world, and your relationship with the world. And Gemini invites us to let those relationships continue to change. So with the non-committal quality of Gemini, maybe perhaps we are invited into a process of changing and shifting the relationship instead of moving into a next relationship, right? It's how can we change together? How can we move in ways that keep us alive, be it a friend or a romantic relationship or even a relationship with our kids, those of us who have kids. It's this invitation to keep it alive, to keep it moving, to keep the inner and the outer moving in ways that offer us a process of learning, always in the process of learning. And so I hope that this is interesting for you. And as this lunar cycle goes on its route, it will take us into the sign of Cancer. So we're beginning in the lunar cycle in Gemini when the sun and the moon right now are in Gemini, and then some of this lunar cycle is going to be in Cancer, which is the mother. So this is the spark. Right now we're in the spark of ideas, and as summer solstice arrives and the sign of Cancer arrives, we begin to put those ideas in the womb of the mother, in the arms of the mother, where she nourishes the ideas and helps them grow. So as this lunar cycle continues, we will continue to nurture the things that we are sparking and bringing into life right now. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this is interesting and fun for you, and I am so grateful to spend this moment with you. If you like this video and it's interesting for you, share it with your people, put a like on it, subscribe to this channel. Always more is coming. And if you want to go deeper, if this is kind of your jam and you want to go deeper into archetypes and stories and different ways of looking at ourselves and looking at the world and deepening our relationships, do subscribe to our mailing list over on mamamandala.com. I will leave a link for you in the description of this video so you can click on it, subscribe to our mailing list, and the depth will deepen into your mailbox. Okay, thank you, and I will see you soon. Mwah.